The panel was basically celebrities and athletes in cannabis. I think all our athletes must still be at practice.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm one of the NBA players. I'm here.
Well, there we go.
Come on.
See, she's funny. I told you. So, I'm just going to kind of go off the cuff here and kind of throw a few things out. I know a little bit about each of you, and I know a lot about celebrities in the cannabis space and the celebrity brand because I work for one as well. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about, kind of some of your experience, what you think things are like today in this space. I know a lot of you have experience for many years in this space before it went recreational, before a lot of things got crazy and changed around. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of start from there. So,
Oh, you want to go there?
yeah, we want to go there.
We can go there.
So,
I'm new. I want to learn. Tell me everything.
well, Steve, on the last panel, you were mentioning some things about the testing protocols and things like that. So, when you kind of got into the industry and were starting out and things like that, there really wasn't this kind of protocol for testing and things like that, and you kind of went out and sought after that. So, can you explain a little bit about that, or what kind of led you to realize that, hey, we should really know what the hell we're smoking here?
Well, there were a couple of things, right? Around the time that I opened Harborside was one of the first 6 cannabis businesses in the United States to get a license, because the city of Oakland was the first city to license cannabis businesses. And around that time, there was still a lot of controversy about cannabis, and these cops would get on television interviews, and they always go, "Ow, it's not medicine, they don't even know what's in it." And I wanted to have an answer to that. And I also was aware that I was serving a population of people who, many of them, had compromised immune systems. And that cannabis is safe, but it can be contaminated with things that aren't safe. And so I called every single testing laboratory in the Bay Area, commercial testing labs, before I opened Harborside, and asked them to test the cannabis. And they all refused because they were afraid of the feds and they didn't want to handle the cannabis. And so we had to open with untested cannabis, but we started working on the first cannabis analytics laboratory, which we opened a couple years later, Steep Hill Laboratory. And that ushered in the whole idea that you could have things like THC and CBD ratios in cannabis. And there's some beginnings to start reaching some level of product safety for cannabis consumers that every other consumer's had in this country for the past 100 years.
Excellent, that's amazing.
That's so awesome. That's so cool. I almost want to, can we just give a round of applause to it? To cannabis getting tested. It's such a big deal to know exactly what it is that we're taking in. It's really cool.
Absolutely. So, Ms. Puffs, if I may.
You may.
You just released a hemp CBD gummy product.
I did. Full spectrum. That is correct.
Very cool. So we were also talking full spectrum versus just straight hemp, different types of
That's correct.
things like that. So what was kind of your experience kind of starting your own brand and kind of coming in and going from, where you're at in the cannabis space to saying, hey, I want to have a brand and go out there and push it?
Well, first of all, like being in front of so many people and having a social media platform, for those that don't know, I post on Instagram and YouTube, and there's a lot of companies that reach out because obviously they want to get put in front of your audience. And during the last 6 months, I've gotten so many CBD brands that reached out, but some were very good CBD brands, but some were just not. And obviously I would hate to approach somebody and be like, your product sucks. It's something that somebody worked on. And so I was like, I want to put a product out there that's actually good, that people like, that's tailored to the customer themselves, from the packaging to the gummy inside, that takes back the feedback, that is gluten-free and gelatin-free and vegan and is extracted in a valid facility and maybe costs a little bit more because it is a good product. Our one container of gummies is 750 milligrams, 25 milligrams per gummy, and it costs us $55 a container to make right now because we're putting really quality products in there. Now, of course, once we're able to order bulk, hundreds of thousands of dollars, of course we can bring the price down, but we're not planning on cutting any corners in the product. It's just in the quantity that we're able to provide. We just launched about a month and a half ago, and it's just nice to see the education that has even been put out there. The amount of questions that come through about CBD and hemp and the difference between the seed and using the full plant and everything. I didn't know that we didn't know this much information, how much there was to learn. So I wanted to put out a product that was good and at the same time provide the information of why CBD is so important and why, yeah, you can go on Amazon and order something for $20, $30, but let me tell you, you're not going to get that CBD that you're going to get from full spectrum gummies that are really putting out a quality product. But it's not cheap.
That's right. I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because I think that's a perception in the industry. A lot of times, especially around a celebrity brand, is that if they see a certain price point, they think the celebrity is going for, the big bucks or something like that. But it's really about equality. I know with our brand, we really want to have a premium cannabis brand. We want to give it a price point that, isn't the premium price that everybody can afford. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you have to be business savvy. You got to make money off of your product.
To put it right back in, to provide more, to give them, different options. There's some people that, for example, my gummies come sugar covered right now. Diabetics can't have that, but for type 2 diabetes, it's very good to take CBD. So the next version is going to be, sugar free, but that takes capital and a bunch of things that you need to put into that. So we need to be able to bring in the money to put it right back in to provide the product that everybody needs.
Absolutely. So on the retail side, with your experiences and things like that, Chauncey, what's your thought about that with celebrity brands and things like that, or different things coming into the space that may have some fluctuation in quality, some fluctuation in price and value? What is it that you've kind of looked for over the years?
I mean, we always prided ourselves on quality at the shop. We had a pretty large cultivation attached early in the game in LA and in the Valley area, so we were doing pretty well medically, and so we did a lot more farm to table stuff. But now with like you said, it's quality based. I mean, if somebody comes in with good product, and I support it, because if you want to pride yourself as a company on quality, then I love the plant. So like I want to see the best. You know what I mean? I mean, in a new business, everybody, especially this is like. It's the green rush. It's a revolution of something that's going to open up across the world, as far as I'm concerned, eventually. And everybody wants to stake their claim or stick their flag in the floor. So we'll work through it.
Yeah, definitely. So another thing that was brought up earlier in the earlier panel, and I think you brought this up, Steve, was that we really have to pay homage and tribute to a lot of the pioneers in the industry and the people that have done this for a long time. From different aspects. A lot of people are coming into the game, coming into the business and running out the small farmer, and we're seeing a lot of people that have really worked hard to create a long-term established foothold in the cannabis industry, kind of be run out by larger things like that. How do you feel that brands or other companies that are getting into the space today can help support that effort and really help to accommodate the people that have really put in the mileage?
So I think the number one thing that already licensed cannabis companies can do to help some of the legacy cannabis pioneers who are being squeezed out of the industry now is to lobby for a more sane, rational, and accessible licensing system.
Yes.
And that's the big problem. The reason that people can't get into the legal system isn't because they don't want to be. Right? Nobody wants to have to live with the fear of helicopters over their house. Nobody wants to live with that. But the barriers to entry are just really high. When we were in the underground market, there were a lot of skill sets that we learned how to do really, really well, right? But there were a bunch of skill sets that we didn't have the opportunity to learn. Like, we didn't learn about marketing and branding, because if we marketed and branded our goods, then the cops would follow us and they would bust us, right? And this wasn't that long ago we're talking about. I mean, the federal government's been they just stopped trying to close me down in 2016. Finance. You don't keep records when you're in a gray market because they turn into evidence and you get convicted. So you don't develop expertise in tracking stuff. Compliance, we got really good at evading laws, but complying with a whole set of regulations is another issue, right? So that's part of it, that there's some skill sets that need to be learned. And so some of those legacy pioneers need to step up to the plate and learn those skill sets or associate with people who have. But the really tragic thing is that there are regulations that are unnecessary, that are extreme, that require a huge amount of expense. And I'll give you an example. Every cannabis licensee in the state of California is required to have a seed-to-sale tracking system. They have to track every single gram of cannabis through every part of their operation that it travels through. You would think that you would have the same kind of regulation for radioactive waste.
Yeah, I would think so.
But you would be wrong,
Yes.
right? So cannabis is regulated more severely than radioactive waste in the state of California, and that has a direct impact on the ability of smaller operators, whether they're cultivators or manufacturers or retailers, to be able to stay in the game.
Absolutely. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. So I was going to ask you as well. So I know I see a lot of comments on your videos and things from people that, make comments about you being a pretty girl in cannabis, or, that you get attention for that kind of thing. And so I'm curious, I'm not trying to be weird or put anything on the spot, but how do you feel, you're a successful entrepreneur in the cannabis space using social media. You're obviously coming in with a whole new, kind of way and approach to marketing, what you do as a brand and what you do for brands. How do you combat things like that? I mean, some of your comments are great because you just come back and got a witty way of coming back. But what does that do for your brand and for you and your work? Do you find it more challenging to be, a young woman in the cannabis space as opposed to just, a dude, stoner guy doing the same similar kind of thing?
I think I kind of have some advantages and disadvantages. Obviously being a girl on social media that is, as you say, not bad looking, pretty, is easier to attract attention. A good looking dog versus not so good looking dog is going to gain more social media attention. It's just how it goes. But once you break away from that just social media, me trying to launch businesses, I'm in the works of trying to open up a consumption lounge. Nobody takes me seriously because one, I'm 25 years old. Two, I'm a young girl. I'm hyper. I post a lot of comedic type, content on social media. But behind the scenes, I really want to set the bar here for how things should be done, how consumption lounges should look, how you don't need to go to a bar to meet people. That shouldn't be your only option. You can go out and have a smoking evening, and you can bring your mom and show her, hey, this is not a dirty basement out of a dirty bong. It's clean, it's tested, it's good. I want to be able to provide all that, but it definitely makes it harder that I'm not a guy that just comes in and says, all right, here's what we're going to do. You're going to give me your capital, we're going to get this building, we're going to get this licensing, we're going to fucking open this thing. Pardon my French. I don't speak French for this, and I can't do that because I come in and they're like, what are you going to do? Are you going to make us skits? Are you going to make us funny skits about this? So that's definitely been something that I've had to overcome. But it just makes it so much more worthwhile when people are laughing at you or think you're not going to do it. And then you come back and you're like, hey, look at me cutting this ribbon on this consumption lounge that I'm going to be opening, and everybody in here is going to be hanging out in there. Some people might be not, but I'm just saying. So that's definitely been a difficulty, but we're working past it.
Yeah, let's just underline it, right? First, pay tribute to the strong women in the cannabis industry who are willing to take that on.
Thank you.
And I think that whatever tools that you have at hand that you can work, that you work them, right? Consistent with your own personal dignity. But the gender imbalance in the cannabis industry mirrors the gender imbalance, sometimes to a more extreme degree than we've seen in mainstream business. And it's just absolutely unacceptable, and we cannot allow it to continue anymore as an industry. And I'm looking at all of you guys out there, because the girls aren't the ones who are going to make this change happen. If you find yourself on a panel and there's not a woman on the panel, then don't get up on the panel, okay? If you walk into a boardroom and there's not women on that board, understand that boards that have less women on them are less profitable, okay?
Of course, you're missing the market.
It's so crazy that you say this too. Because like working in this, I'm interacting with women because they understand that it's more than just, you're not just a marketing tool, there's a personal connection, there's things that you have to, do, you gotta treat them a certain way. And so a lot of these companies that I'm working with are run by women, and like Ladies of Paradise do a lot of really great things, and there's a lot of companies that have, female representatives that really connect with the influencers. Because if you look, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but in the cannabis social media area, there are a lot of female content creators. But I would not say that there's equally as many male content creators. However, business owner-wise is absolutely the other way around. So I'm personally seeing a lot of women working in the cannabis industry, and it's really nice to see that. They're taking over, they're stepping in, they're like, no, you sit down and I'm taking this, I'm doing this. That's how I'm doing it too. So everybody out here just step up. Not to put you guys down, but you've been controlling shit for so long. Let us do some stuff.
No, I appreciate the openness, and I don't mean to put you on the spot by bringing that question up, but I saw a comment somebody made on one of your videos the other day. And
what was it?
Something to the effect that, oh, just another pretty girl in cannabis, what makes you any different? And I wanted to reach through the computer, Instagram, and slap the ass. But, I mean, it's because it's an ignorance, And
But it's because they don't know. That's the thing, is like, the people that know are seeing the good, like, I just organized a coast-to-coast cleanup that got 15 different locations in the United States and Canada going in 2 weeks, and if we had more time, we'd probably do that. 100 people showed up in Venice to clean up Venice Beach with me and hand out waters and fruit to the homeless, to anybody that looked like they needed it. We had people in Rhode Island, in Denver, in Seattle, and that's why when people make those comments, I'm like, you clearly don't pay attention, because if you did for just one day, you would see the positivity that I provide, the good causes. We just did also a huge donation for Serbia. There's an animal shelter. They're trying to build an actual facility for these dogs so they don't have to live outside. So many different things. So on one hand, sometimes it's irritating, but on the other hand, it's a giggle, because it's like, you just don't pay attention. And no, you're just making yourself look dumb. That's all it is. Because if you just follow me for one day, I may annoy you, but you're gonna like what I do.
That's awesome.
It's all about coming together. When we have so many people that actually pay attention, I love comedy. I love doing what I do, but I gotta tell you, I've done a lot of different events. We've done a lot of smoke sessions. We did a smoke and paint. We did a hike, bunch of different things. This cleanup was my favorite thing, because it wasn't about me, it wasn't about Mac Dizzle, which was my roommate, it wasn't about anything like that. It was about all the individuals that came together, and we had kids from 11 years old to people that are 60 years old cleaning up yesterday. Like, it was just amazing to see.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And then we came in and we pushed them all to come to over here yesterday to come to get a job, and so many of them went home, cleaned up, came back in buttoned up shirts and nice shoes with resumes. I didn't even recognize them. I was like, oh, you were cleaning up today? Damn, you look good.
Nice, I love that. I'm always interested in kind of understanding people's story about how they got into cannabis, so I can kind of give you a amended version of mine. So I was raised in a very strict Christian home. My dad was a church choir director, so it was always the devil's lettuce. We had this neighbor that drove down the street in a van with this door open all the time and smoked while he's bill out. We called it Freakus. So that was like my, introduction to cannabis. And I played in bands for a long time. So I was in a band. There was about 23, and one of my bandmates comes in and he just smelled like a skunk. And I'm like, oh, dude, you're not gonna share any with me? He's like, you want to smoke? And I was like, I trust you guys. Let's see. And man, the music sounded so different to me. All my ADHD went away, and I was like, what the fuck have I been judging this shit for years? And I mean, I have this negative self-talk because that's what I was taught, years later, here I am now, a spiritual guide and, still a musician and do things like that, but I'm, working at a cannabis company, slinging the weed, and I love it.
I love that, yes.
But I'm also a certified cannabis wellness coach, and I'm really into the wellness side of it, and the healing aspect of it, and really how we can make the world a better place through this plant. So that's kind of my little abridged story. And I'm kind of curious, how you guys discovered cannabis and how it came into your life and took hold.
I started smoking relatively early. I'm from the Valley. I'm from San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. I moved from Dallas. Yeah. And so I started smoking relatively young, but then in my you know, obviously I was a child actor. I have a different life path than most people. I have a little more freedom at a younger age and maybe a little bit more money than some people have the freedom to do too. So I lived on my own from a pretty early age. So I got into cannabis, and then like anything, I break it down and I wanna, you know, just learn everything I can about it. So I probably picked up George's first book and started to get into horticulture and set up a little light in a closet, and things kind of progressed from there. By the time I was 19, I guess I built my first room in my mom's garage and started to try to cultivate a little bit. It was a disaster, but you know, we figured it out along the way. And then as the dispensaries became more of a you know, less shady and more out in the open. I mean, obviously Steve's seen it from much earlier than me, but in LA it was, when I became medical, there was 2 places in all of Los Angeles. It was Inglewood Wellness Center. I think Yellow House had been closed down, but I used to work with Paul a little bit at Inglewood Wellness, and then there was somebody operating out of a house in Santa Monica, I remember, that, I forget his name, but I knew him pretty well too. So to see what has evolved, and then to, you know, I managed a big pre-ICO for quite a long time, so I've seen the range of the business come. That's my entrance into the cannabis space, I guess. I love, you know, I love the plant. That's what I wanted to do.
I guess I would.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'll pass to you. I actually am a pretty recent smoker. I just started smoking about 4 years ago. And I was born and raised in Ukraine, very foreign. Cannabis is not a thing out there, at least not when I was growing up. Like, whatever you get out there is not cannabis, if you did get it. And I was raised very much not okay. Drinking vodka for breakfast, totally cool. Pour it all over your pancakes. Cannabis, no you can't. So I didn't even like think about it, never even came into my mind. I moved to the United States in 2005. Moved around a couple of states and tried it once. I think what I tried was not good weed, because I've never had anything happen to me like that than what happened to me back then. So I was like, I don't want this anymore. And then 4 years ago, I had a friend that introduced me to the cannabis plant the proper way, you know, slowly and surely, seeing how you feel. Which if you're introducing anybody into the cannabis world and you just let them get fucked up, you're a bad friend.
Yeah, that's true.
Just ease them into it, give them some indica or some hybrid, don't give them anxiety with a bunch of sativa, don't let them hate it, show them the best sides of it, give them the best snacks when they have the munchies, give them a blanket when they're ready to curl up, like show them how comfortable they feel when we smoke. And that was kind of like, that was my experience. Somebody introduced me, an ex-boyfriend of mine introduced me to cannabis the right way. He gave me a little bit, turned on Nintendo 64 Mario Kart for me, gave me peanut butter cups, and I was like, yo, this is the one! This is what I need. At the time, I had a very bad eating habit. In my entire life, I just couldn't eat. I had no appetite, had a very hard time putting on weight, just didn't feel the best. I don't know if anybody in here has ever woken up nauseous, not feeling good. That was me every single morning, because I couldn't eat enough the day before. I had no appetite. And then after I got introduced to cannabis, it changed my entire life. I had an appetite. I started getting creative, which I never considered myself a creative person. Started making cannabis videos, skits, incorporating a bunch of different things. I learned about editing, clipping, putting things here and there, making it look one way or another. And it was all because when I started smoking cannabis. And there are times when I go on vacations to places where it's not allowed, and I have such a hard time, because it's hard for me to enjoy my vacation because I have no appetite and I can't eat and I don't feel great, I don't want to do anything. All the activities that you have set up, you feel nauseous, you don't want to do it. So I am extremely grateful for cannabis, because I feel like I am a totally different person living a totally different life, a healthy life, feeling good, feeling happy about it, feeling like I belong somewhere. And all the friends that I'm able to find, it's literally, oh wait, are you smoking a blunt? Oh, come on here, let's be friends. And then you just start talking, and it's as simple as that. It doesn't happen at a bar like that, because usually someone's drunk and you will get punched in the face. So, love cannabis, love the plant like you said. Very new to it, but I plan on sticking with it for the rest of my life for sure.
Awesome.
Okay, back this time. So for me, it was just love at first sight. I ingested some cannabis, smoked some cannabis, when I was 13 years old at a friend's house after school and felt nothing at first. I was walking home, and my way home took me through a park. And I'm a 13-year-old boy, okay? The park is like, it's my shortcut, okay? I never notice anything about that park. I'm just going from point A to point B with something else on my mind. But this day I start going through the park, and I'm like, right? I mean, I start noticing these amazing things. I'm like, oh, wow, look at the sunlight. It's coming through the trees, and there's shadows on the ground, and I can see the light through the veins of the leaves, and I feel that light on the back of my neck, and I hear this water gurgling with the creek in the background, and I smell these leaves as they're crunching underneath my feet, and I feel this moisture on the back of my neck, and I'm like, wow, it's like that moisture is just like the water, and it came out from the sun that's coming down through the trees that's making the leaves, and like, I'm all connected. And as for this, you know, I felt this connection to the entire web of life. And I walked out of that forest. By then it was like a forest, right? It was just a little park. I walked through the park, and I come out the other side, I'm like, well, I don't really know exactly what just happened to me, but I know that it's really meaningful and profound, and I'm no way going to even think about giving up this plant, right? Because I'm very conscious in those days that it's illegal. And I grew up in Washington, D.C. During the anti-Vietnam War protest in a civil rights family. So it was very natural for me when I saw a stupid law to stand up and start working on changing it. I didn't think it would take quite as long as it took us, but that's how I got started.
Awesome. Well, I got the 5-minute warning, and my last question was going to be about spirituality in cannabis, and that might take us a little more than 5 minutes. So does anybody have any questions for our panelists?
No questions, let's carry on.
Let me take that spirituality.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So does everybody heard the term the stoner epiphany? Anybody not heard that term? Okay, so the stoner epiphany is like, it's the end of the day, right? And you're usually sitting down by yourself, you took a few dabs, you hit a joint, you're sitting back, and the movie of the day starts like replaying in your head, right? And like the way that it works for me sometimes is I go, man, do you remember this afternoon you were running down the back hall of Harborside so fast trying to get to that meeting that you just blew by your new employee who was trying to get your attention to say hello to you? Oh, yeah, I do remember that. Well, are you going to do something about it? I guess I better do something about it, right? So I pick up the phone, I found out the person's phone number, I call them, and I say something to them, right? And so what is that? For other people, it can work, like you can have very heavy revelations about your relationship or your workplace or your own physical health. But it's that moment of revelation, and for me, I think it's, when I think about cannabis spirituality, I think about the stoner epiphany, because I think that what's really going on there is one of the most valuable qualities of cannabis, and that's its ability to engage in internal dialogue that helps lead us to being the people we really, in our hearts, most want to be, and I think that's why we attach to this plant so deeply, and why people have struggled for it for so long. So I think that at the core, it is a spiritual relationship.
Definitely.
I love that so much. Thank you for saying that, because that's fucking amazing. That's true. Like, I do sit back, and I never thought about it because I've never heard of that term, but I do feel like an asshole sometimes. Again, pardon my French. God, I'm terrible. I'm sorry, guys. But I just like, because somebody tried to come up and say hello, or because somebody was just asking if you had a daughter to help them out or something, but you're so focused on you that you're not aware of your surroundings, and it just takes that little puff of a joint sometimes to really put you in a reality check, like, wow, you were kind of a dick today. Maybe tomorrow don't do that, so that's really nice. I appreciate that you said that.
Elevated consciousnness.
Yep. And that's a great point that you just said that, because my thought when you were telling that story is kind of like, from like a more of the yogic tradition, or maybe more of the Eastern philosophies, what really makes herbs and cannabis work is that it changes your vibration, it raises your frequency. So we each have our own note, and what really brought me to my spiritual path was a phrase by the Indian mystic Hazrat Nanak Khan, who brought Indian classical music to the West. And he said to attain spirituality is to realize that the whole universe is one note, or I'm sorry, is one symphony in which we each have our own note. And when I started thinking about what my note sounded like, I was like, oh shit, man, my note's way off tune because I'm like screaming and I'm yelling and I'm pissed off and I'm trying to like bring people up and what am I doing? But it's that raising of your frequency. So and it's funny because I actually, when I say I'm gonna go smoke, I say I'm gonna tune up. That's my thing. So that's my thing is I'm retuning my note. I'm tuning to that natural vibrational frequency that makes me a happy, cool guy to be around, other than the hyperactive or stressed out individual I might be without it. So
I'm
thank
gonna
you.
start saying tune up.
Yeah.
It's 4:16 right now. It's almost time to tune up.
Almost time for a tune
We
up.
got
4:22 now.
3.5 minutes. Let's do this.
Oh yeah, and this is my last panel of the day, so it's definitely time to tune up.
All right, let's go out on the patio and get this taken care of.
We're going to have some beautiful music here in a few minutes, people. So thank you guys so much for your time and for your energy and for coming up here and sharing some things about yourselves. And thanks for having me.
Thank you.
And I'll give a shameless